The Senzo Meyiwa trial has seen Advocate Malesela Teffo objecting strongly to a number of issues, among them the postponement of the case, who has jurisdictions over this matter, and whether two of the accused can be remanded in custody. Earlier, Advocate Zandile Mshololo, Fisoguhle Ntuli's lawyer, slammed the state, accusing it of violating his constitutional right to a fair trial. My colleague, that's ENC reporter Slindelo Masigana, following this matter. Let's go live to her now in court. Good afternoon, Slindelo. Well, the court just adjourned a short while ago, set to resume at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. But the bulk of the discussion this afternoon, arguments, was yet around calls for another adjournment, a longish kind of postponement. Tell us why.
So you would remember last week that Advocate Zandile Mshololo made submissions and a scathing attack really on the state to say that it was not conducting this trial properly, essentially, by the fact that they were not disclosing a lot of the information that's coming forth as the trial is unfolding. In particular, this is in connection with, of course, docket 375, which is a second docket that was opened in 2019, investigating the murder of Senzo Meyiwa, but has a completely different set of suspects. That particular docket was then clarified in a way of a letter submitted to the court this morning, I should say two letters rather, where the NPA says that that particular document has no merit and that it was of an opinion of a junior advocate within the NPA based in the South Gauteng division. So what we know, of course, is that Advocate Mshololo now says that she needs time to be able to study this document, and a short adjournment is just not going to suffice. Let's take a listen.
After receiving further particulars during trial, I still need to request for further particulars from the state, and after that we still have to do a pre-trial conference and also deal with the admissions thereon. There are particulars that are not contained in this docket. It has been sifted, and I need to clarify all those issues, my lord, with the state.
Yeah.
As I have indicated, my lord, last week, that the remaining period, which is today up until Friday, which was the date in which we were supposed to sit in this matter, are insufficient, my lord.
Yes.
And therefore, I will ask that the matter be adjourned.
Okay, there was the appeal there for this adjournment issue, but she's defending Fisoguhle Ntuli, that's Zandile Mshololo, as accused number 5, and making a point earlier, Slindelo, that she would have done things differently had she known about this other document. Tell us more about what she told court.
Well, you know, she's been quite consistent in saying that the rights of her clients have been violated here by the state by their lack of non-disclosure of that second docket, saying that just because she may have been aware of this docket doesn't mean that she had access to it. And the state, submitted itself that when it had tried to request a copy of the docket, instead it was given to Advocate Malesela Teffo, but then Advocate Mshololo coming back to say, but it's your responsibility as the state to ensure that the defense has all related information in connection with this case, in particular, especially if there is a second docket in connection to the matter, saying that by the time that her client was made to plead, possibly, if they had had this information before, they would have reacted differently and possibly not pled in the manner that they did. I'm not sure if that bite is available, but we can take a listen to it if it is.
it is about the same cause of action that we are dealing about in this matter. It is about the same count that we are dealing about in this matter. So as a result of that, my lord, the state had to, and the state had a legal duty, my lord. It is not a favor. Accused number 5 constitutional right has been violated to such an extent that, my lord, had we known about the existence of this docket, we would not have pleaded as we have pleaded. And right now we are in a predicament that we are unable to conduct our defense further as a result of this late disclosure of the police docket. The state knew about this docket, my lord, and neglected or decided not to disclose it to accused number 5, and thereby violated the accused number 5 constitutional right. And that on its own, my lord, amounts to a miscarriage of justice.
Very strong argument there by Mshololo in court. But we also saw another indication that there is no love lost in between the judge and Advocate Teffo. Some heated exchange took place earlier. What was that all about?
Yeah, it's been a back and forth, I think, for most of the day, but then, especially because Advocate Malesela Teffo feels quite strongly that he needs to come in defense of his clients, in particular, accused 1 and 2. They were arrested, Brodan, outside, essentially. So when they were arrested for this particular crime, they still had their freedom. And since then, he is contending that their constitutional rights, all 5 accused really, for a speedy trial, is being infringed upon, especially if the court is planning on granting a very lengthy postponement in this matter. So what we've seen for most of the morning is Advocate Teffo trying to make his submissions, but then Judge Malesela trying to remind Advocate Teffo that when he has the opportunity, in accordance to the rules of court, he will be given that chance to address the courts. There were a few heated words that were exchanged between the two of them. Judge Malesela actually describing Advocate Teffo as trying to bulldoze the court into doing things his way. Let's take a listen.
Lordship, I still feel grief as accused 1 to 4 that we are definitely being excluded from these proceedings by this court. Okay. Because there are very material
if you are not going
issues.
to respond to what I asked you, sit down. Sit down, Advocate Teffo. If you are not going to address dates, sit down.
I cannot be forced.
Unless you want to be in contempt of this court. I asked you a specific question. If you are not answering me on that, sit down.
Lordship, the best way, let's go to the chambers.
No, I'm not going to the chambers. About you trying to undermine me in court. I'm not going to any chambers.
But now the accused 1 to 4 has been undermined here. We cannot prolong this case.
Sit down.
Yeah.
Advocate, sit down.
Wow. Well, there you have it. One such instance happening earlier. But on some of the issues that were raised by Advocate Teffo, and to which Judge Maumane said this court needs to consider, and they're going to have to present a submission with the heads and all of that, it was an issue of jurisdiction. I mean, it's been there lingering on and off. And I was just thinking, Slindelo, maybe it should have been raised very strongly by Advocate Teffo right at the beginning, but he did so again today.
Yeah, I think some would even argue these are all pre-trial issues that are being ventilated in the midst of this trial. Now, the issue of jurisdiction is once more rearing its head here in the North Gauteng High Court. Advocate Teffo had briefly actually raised this issue during the beginning stages of the trial back in April, but today he made further submissions to say that he doesn't believe that the letter in which gives the North Gauteng High Court the jurisdiction to hear this matter was actually done properly in terms of procedurally, raising the fact that Shamila Batory, that's the NDPP, had actually signed this letter back in February the 9th, 2020, which was 9 months before the accused were actually arrested for the crime. Also flagging that the 9th of February was actually a Sunday, alluding to the fact that how could she be working on a Sunday and signing such documents. He's saying the jurisdiction that's been given to the North Gauteng High Court has not been done properly, and if this court is going to grant a lengthy postponement, they'd be doing so basically without jurisdiction, which is why he's objecting, saying that his clients have a right to a speedy trial, that justice delayed is certainly justice denied, which is why now we're seeing a postponement overnight, Brad Dan, because now what Judge Malesela is saying is that he needs a formal application, not just submissions. Counsel needs to write their heads of argument, and then what we're going to see tomorrow is essentially a date to be able to argue those heads, and then see exactly when this matter will resume officially. Let's take a listen.
We came to realize a material defect which does not give this court a jurisdiction to hear and grant the application contemplated by Advocate Malesela. The jurisdiction of this matter is a common cause that is under the local division South Gauteng in Johannesburg. And as we stand before this court, the procedure in terms of the Minister of Justice to give this court a jurisdiction has been grossly violated.
Slindelo, as we conclude, the Judge Maumane is saying back tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning. The idea is just about the date, or will it also be they'll also be discussing tomorrow how they'll be going forward in terms of this matter, particularly around the issues that have been raised?
Definitely, it's going to be yet another administrative session, Bradan. They were debating the matter resuming sometime in September, and then once more in November, and then possibly an end block date, which would see the trial resuming for at least 3 months next year. So those issues are going to be ventilated. Court role planners need to be consulted. Of course, counsel needs to check as to when they're going to be available. But for the most part, counsel is available on all the dates that have been suggested, in terms of about 2 weeks in September, 2 weeks in November. It's just that Advocate Teffo is objecting to this lengthy postponement because he says that his clients deserve a speedy trial, and of course resolving that issue around jurisdiction. But tomorrow what we're going to essentially see is agreement on dates, and then also agreements as to when counsel will be filing their heads of argument in response.
Yeah, Judge Maumane is saying that he can also look at them even if it's they happen to reach him during recess, which was very good of him, because everybody agreeing on the need for speed on this to deal with these issues. Thank you very much, Lindelo Masigane. Another brilliant coverage there from you, and also your Twitter timeline has been brilliant. We've been following it, helping us also make sense of some of the dramatic and key moments during this trial. Back tomorrow. That's the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. Will resume at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.